wouldn't take it. Frontier, Texas, whole different deal. Would you take some of our family stuff? And I've never turned down anything. Even though now I'm beginning to wonder if we're going to have to build again. But I think my next step's going to be to ask people who have loaned things to come get it. We've got about 20–30% loaned and the rest of it donated. But Richard one day came in, told me about a little patch collection. He's got a Cox. Richard, how many patches in that collection?
About 2,500.
About 2,500 patches. I can imagine his family vacations. They go to Tennessee, they go to North Carolina, you know, and he goes to police department, sheriff department, Department of Public Safety, getting patches. Did your wife ever comment on those trips, Richard?
Yeah.
How much she enjoyed it?
She said, please don't. I used to take patches with me. It's a trade. You go to a police department.
Right.
And you give one of yours and tell you're a collector. And there's always a collector in a police department. There's always. And I'd go through a certain city and I'd tell my wife, you know, I want to get a patch from this particular city. She said, oh no.
All right. You should see his patch collection. Yes.
My question before you run out of time, Merkel was then established with German community, or how did it get its name?
All right. Excellent question. I appreciate the question. Why is Abilene where it is? What got Abilene going? Railroad. They were laying the railroad from east to west and establishing towns along the railroad. And they established Abilene, and it was the county seat, right?
No.
Where was the county seat?
Right here.
Right here. Courthouse right out here. Is that the original location of the courthouse, or did they move it? That's original. All right. And that is special. Did y'all see recently? They got the judge's desk back. One of the JPs in Abilene used it for years. Dedridge. And when he quit, they wanted to put it back where it belonged, really, which is here. And so it's back in the courthouse. This was the county seat. And I would say Abilene stole it.
Why not?
All right, anyway, it was quite a battle. Abilene, of course, got it. And I'm glad this history is preserved here. Glad y'all are preserving it. It's great. I had one of the original cabinets from the courthouse, 1870s. How we doing on time? It's 11:30? 12? 5 minutes. I'm gonna move fast. This is one thing we do at the museum, or we did till I got bucked off 3 times. We ride Longhorns. I just thought y'all would enjoy some of our recreation. Former Merkel truck stop right next to the restaurant that's now closed. And I would say this, I don't know how many of you from towns that like to bulldoze history. Merkel loved to bulldoze history. The old Farrier bus station, bulldoze it, build a nice metal building for City Hall. The old Cozy Theater. Oh, here it is, right here. This was built for the Cozy Theater in Merkel, silent movie theater, built out of native rock. Merkel bulldozed it to build a fire station. Dug a big hole, puts the Cozy Theater in the hole, covered it up. That's the way Merkel looks at history. Along comes the Merkel Historical Society. We're trying to preserve it, and it's nothing but a battle. They want to bulldoze everything and build a nice metal building. By the way, it's such a blessing we ended up in the metal building we ended up in, even though we can't get any support. even though the only money we have is donations and memorials. And people said it couldn't be done. You can't keep a museum open on donations and memorials. We've done it 9 years. And what a blessing it's been. People that want to see history preserved. And by the way, it worked out great. 3,000 square foot metal building. We add on, we buy the block. I wanted the old bank building downtown, 1900, with the big white columns. We're blessed it didn't work out. We're where we belong. We've got 13,000 square feet and the whole block, so it worked out. Sadler Clinic Hospital, you got the support, buy the furnishings for a room, got your name on the door. Hendrick did that, and I've got several of those. Anybody ever buy any clothes at Mellinger Dry Goods? Just one, two, all right. Mellinger was a family of Jews who lived in Merkel, had the dry goods store. This tells what Richard Valdez used to do. He was a bicycle officer. We show these to the kids. Richard left some badges for them, Abilene police officer badges. We really try to promote the kids. We got arrowheads all over that museum, huge collection. Some people say more arrowheads, tools, Indian tools they've ever seen. From Mulberry Canyon and from Clear Fork, the Brazos. Got a man in Merkel that carves. Can you imagine carving that with a pocket knife? And we've got it holding a baseball, chains that he carved. His granddaddy did it. We've got his granddaddy's carvings. Now we've got his. This little hat here, I let the kids wear it. I let them drop it on their foot and cry. This thing is heavy. World War I helmet. We've got a singer from Merkel, Pretty Little D-Don. Anybody ever hear?
You bet.
All right, she sang at the Fair Park. I think it had another name, 1950s. But she went on to Nashville and made it big. Married a record producer and a guy that was, let me think, the guy at Turkey, Texas. I lost his name. Bob Wills. He traveled with Bob Wills and was his manager. She married this guy, Larry Moeller. By the way, Larry died last month. But, and this is a record that got some of her songs on it. She wrote for Waylon. She was Willie Nelson's piano player. Her name is now Dee Moeller. She went by Christy Allen for a while. I've got a song. She got a platinum record for writing Slow Moving Outlaw. And I've got 20 of her songs, including that with her singing.
Is she still alive?
She's still alive. We brought her back to Merkel 4 years ago for homecoming. I took her back to our car display. I said, pick a car or tractor, you're in the parade. She said, I am not. I said, that wasn't negotiable. Pick your vehicle. She picked a 67 Ford Galaxy convertible, bright red, and we drove in the parade. She said, I'm glad you made me do that. She had a ball. Got a Merkel boy who survived the Bataan Death March. 12,000 of our men marched on that. Less than 200 are still alive. Tillman Rutledge from Merkel is one who is still alive. And this is him in recent years. He contacted me a while back, said, I wish I could reprint my book. He kept a diary. Every day he wrote a little stub of pencil he hid in a diary. Kept the diary. The Germans ever found it, what happened? They'd kill him on the spot. They liked killing Americans. They hated us. And Tillman said, I wish I could republish that. I said, hand it to me, I'll publish it. I've published several books over the years, starting with ours, and published that. Now he's selling it. He is tickled to death. I've never seen such a happy 90-year-old man. Actually, he's only in at 22. He was born leap year, but he's a happy old man. Then he asked me to publish the Bataan in Pursuit of Truth, what the U.S. government did in betraying our boys overseas. And so, that's the Merkel boy. Railroad had an accident in Merkel several years ago. They were carrying these glass balls to go melt down and make things. And we've got thousands of these. We sell them in a museum for $1 and kids are glad to get them. They think they're marbles. All right, I'm gonna have to quit. Thank you. It looks like I came out about right. My wife said I brought enough stuff to talk 2 hours. I knew that wouldn't happen. It's hard for me to talk. Any questions?
I wondered, Angela Merkel is the chancellor of
Yes,
Germany.
yes.
So I married a Merkel, married Alan. His mother grew up there. She was Alice Reed, and she graduated in about 1928. And her family, she and her whole family were there.
Yes.
My brother-in-law is Connie Mac Seymour. The Seymours, there are 8 of them. They're all living, and they all graduated from Merkel. That's a German name. Seymour. Is Merkel a German settlement, is my question.
All right, Merkel, as they were going, I started on this while ago and quit. I'm glad you brought me back to it. Naming the towns, they ran out of names. They got to Trent, and they were supposed to throw out Escoda. Trent was a big rancher over at Escoda. As they were going through, they threw the wrong sign out. So Trent and Escoda got named wrong, backwards. Trent said, they told Trent they're sorry, they'll go back and correct it. He said, forget it, it's done. Merkel was a man working on the railroad. They were out of names. Merkel was a man they really liked, probably a German. We've lost him. This is what's sad. We've got people, Merkel, care less about history. We don't know who Merkel was, other than he worked on the railroad. When they named the town Merkel after him, he stayed a while and farmed. But that's all we know about Merkel. A year later, a man named Bond came in, put in the railroad car, and made a church, school, telegraph station, post office. It was the hub of Merkel. And so a lot of people say, well, at that time they probably should have changed the name to Bond. I've got a picture of Mr. and Ms. Bond hanging in the museum, and they're called the mother and father of Merkel. And Merkel kind of dropped out. I have contacted Ms. Merkel and asked her to come to Merkel. She hasn't answered my letter yet. Yes.
You might comment about your poster, Cornelia Fort.
Oh, thank you. I brought some of that stuff. I forgot about poor old Cornelia. Out in Mulberry Canyon, where the 2 cops were killed, there's what's called Red Hill. The sheriff and constable were killed a few hundred yards from Red Hill, out where the former town of Newby was, N-U-B-I-A.
Oh, come on, Nubia. No, we called it Newbie, but the telephone people call it Nubia.
That's exactly right. And the museum, when we put our telephone in a few years ago, they spelled it Muse-U-Me. So I tell the phone company calls and says, this is the Muse-U-Me, thanks to y'all who don't know how to spell or pronounce, but you're right. Out there at Newby, and it is N-U-B-I-A, Red Hill, 4 people were killed right there on that hill, right next to it. The 2 cops, this lady here. Oh, they now call them WASP, Women's Air or WASP, Farrier. They didn't know what to call them when Cornelia was flying. She was one of the first. But she was to fly a plane one day. Our men were overseas fighting in World War II. They needed people flying these planes. Women stepped up and volunteered. What did the men say? No. Women can't drive, they can't fly. Leave the women out of it. She flew. Now, one day she was ferrying a plane with 3 or 4 other planes, California to Dallas. As I said, the men didn't like women flying. One of the men, and we'll never know for sure, the investigation didn't sort it out, They basically defended the male pilot, bumped her plane. She went into a nosedive and drove that plane over 100 miles an hour right into the hill there. And most of the men now that saw it happen, one of them died about 5 years ago by the name of Bryony. Most of the men that saw that plane crash are now died. Most of them died in the last 5 years. But immediately the Air Force came out, sealed that area off. They hauled off parts of the plane. And as I said, I got a call one day from a man in Nashville, Tennessee. He said, "Would you like to read my book on that woman and her plane crash?" I said, "Would I? How fast you get it here?" He said, "I'll overnight it to you. Daughter of the Air, Cornelia Ford." And he said, "I'll give it to the museum." So we've got that book over there that people can read.
And we have the Wasp Museum in Sweetwater.
And they've got the Wasp Museum in Sweetwater.
Fabulous.
It's a great museum
It's great.
and free admission. You don't see that very often. Yes.
I lived in Nashville for 20 years. Cornelia Fort was from a very prominent family in Nashville. There is an airport today, still there, and it's on the grounds of today what is Opryland Hotel. But it was a landing strip, and it was called Cornelia Fort Airport. A landing strip on the low area of the Cumberland River on a bend. She was a very, very famous person in Nashville.
Excellent. I appreciate that. I didn't know about that field there. I did know her family was prominent, well off, very angry over what happened to her, and refused to come out here. They felt like she was done dirty, which, what do you say? If it was an accident, he shouldn't have been flying that close to her. Was it intentional? We'll never know. But
Young boys show off.
show off, a show off, that's exactly right. Instead of honoring those women, they were doing this country a great service. One of them killed one of them. That's my interpretation. The fourth person killed on Red Hill, now the county road goes over the hill. Used to it went up to the hill, county road went around it. Back Army used to have a base at Abilene. Then later the Army Air Corps, Dice Air Base. But they sent these young guys, Army guys, out on maneuvers. This guy was out on maneuvers one night in a Jeep, told to drive with lights out. Instead of going around, following the road around Red Hill, he went up and over it, rolled the Jeep and died. So he's the fourth one that died there at Red Hill. Ought to be a marker there in honor of all of them. There's not, and I've argued with some people in the Historical Commission about this. One reason there is not a deal honoring the four deaths. There is one honoring Cornelia Fort, but somebody stole it.
Someone stole it, and that's just awful.
There was one for Mulberry Canyon, Cornelia Fort, some ways from Red Hill, right on FM 126. Thieves stole it. These jerks steal the memorials thinking, the markers, that it's good metal and they go sell the metal. It's scrap metal. They build them intentionally out of something worth nothing, except for what the marker is. They've stole both those markers. Taylor County Historical is working on putting those markers back. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's a done deal. I haven't talked to Anita lately. I haven't made a meeting lately. But pretty much a done deal. Those markers are going back. I think there ought to be a marker at Red Hill in honor of all four who died. The argument that some of them give me is the man who killed the two cops was a Mexican, and that would be prejudicial to put a marker out there. It's history.
The truth is truth.
It's truth, it's history. Put the man's name. What difference does it make? I don't always win the battle. Question? I'm sorry I went over time. I was having fun. I hope y'all were interested. Lake Buffalo Gap Village again, and I guess you work here, you run it, whatever,
I'm the site manager.
site manager. I haven't been out here in a while, sad to say, last time I came, Amy was the site manager. We've communicated, but Amy's been gone a year and a half or something.